Thank you, Mr. Rapp. I would like for the members of the panel to comment on the legislation that we have before the committee today. The legislation is designed to encourage more small firms to respond to SBIR research solicitations. Can you comment on what provisions of the bill will contribute to greater number of small companies applying for SBIR awards? Dr. Coney.
Madam Chairwoman, I think that the most important component of this bill is rectifying and changing the 2003 ruling, allowing now majority-owned venture companies to now participate in this process. This will make this a much more competitive program. You'll get the best science, the best companies involved in this program. I think that this rule has taken a fantastic program and damaged it, and I think that by reinstituting that change alone, you'll now open up the opportunity for the program to be much more successful, more companies benefiting from it, the country benefiting from it.
Ms. Dwight.
We would echo those comments as well. The VC changes really do strengthen the program. As a funder of biotechnology and pharmaceutical research, we often look to the presence of VC funding as proof of concept in a way. We cannot do it alone, and especially as a philanthropy organization, we should not do it alone. So the fact that a company has a promising therapy that's been validated by venture capital funding as well really does indicate to us that we are on the right horse, and we need to work with them in partnership. So the VC funding changes in the new bill really will strengthen the SBIR program to allow those companies, including very small ones, that have very promising therapies to move forward.
Mr. Stoker, I just would like to move to my next question. I would like to address to you. In the discussion of how to treat venture capital investment in the SBIR program, some have proposed placing a cap on the amount of funds that an agency can devote to venture-backed SBIR awards. What is your view of this idea, and what potential problems might this create if implemented?
Madam Chairwoman, in Lintech's views, placing artificial caps on the participation of any small business in this program, I think, creates problems in the agencies. There will be substantial questions about interpretation of the cap. There will be questions in regard to how the accounting process is being managed for ensuring that the cap is honored. Frankly, in many agencies, Madam Chairwoman, they have problems enough with identifying how many dollars go to the SBIR program. There are countless instructions, memos, and directives, for example, from the Office of the Comptroller at OSD, making sure that the services are properly complying with the general thrust of SBIR. So by putting a VC cap in place, you're just complicating the problem.
Thank you. Dr. Coney.
We agree with that assessment. I mean, the National Research Council report says that giving flexibility to the system, allowing the agencies to make that decision to then fund them at the appropriate level will end up giving a better result, and we support that notion.
Thank you. Ms. Lee, in your testimony, you raised an important issue about whether Phase 1 is always necessary in the SBIR program. Can you elaborate on your views regarding this issue?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. CBIR Phase 1 practice essentially is an organized peer review process. So what is required is a small business has to recommend the names of two well-known subject matter experts to the program engineer who's in charge of the subject that you're submitting your proposal to. The process can be done by the small businesses themselves. Basically, we suggest possibly standard affidavit form, and the evaluation form can be downloaded from SBA website, where we can attach to our proposal and send to the subject matter experts, because our research activity, we know who are the subject matter experts. Reason what we are asking for this is because we will offer the flexibility in our schedule. Again, we are, by all means, we're enterprise, we're not academic institution. So we have other responsibilities. We have responsibility to serve our customers, to make profit. So sometimes these activities get into the way of, doing cyber. Of course, the ideal scenario would be our inventors would love to spend all their time in the lab, but currently, because we are, we have to survive, we need to do those business activities as well as doing innovation. So that will offer us a lot of flexibility in conducting our innovation.
Okay. Dr. Koenig, since the SBIR program was last reauthorized, a number of agencies have made jumbo SBIR awards that exceed statutory levels. Many argue that such awards provide agencies with the flexibility to fund the research they view as most productive. What is your perspective on this issue?
We believe quite strongly that, again, the agencies should be the determinant of the size of the award, and there be certain circumstances when the award should be greater than the guidance. In the end, the agency is in the best position to decide what is in best interest of the program towards getting that program towards commercialization. So I think putting it in the hands of the agency makes a lot of sense.
Mr. Stoker, provisions of the legislation authorize initiatives to help SBIR grantees overcome the so-called value of death and commercialize their research. In your opinion, will these provisions bridge this gap and result in more SBIR funded research reaching the marketplace?
Madam Chairwoman, I think the legislation goes a long way towards addressing that problem. It cites a number of tools that agencies could utilize for helping to bridge that gap. We think the most significant one is, because we're largely a defense contractor, is that most of the acquisition managers are totally unaware of the innovations that are being undertaken in the SBIR program. So we think that the guidelines that are provided in the legislation will generate a process where we hope change will take place. And certainly with the reporting requirements you now have in the bill, I think you'll be able to follow it as well.
Okay. And Ms. Dwight, SBIR eligibility rules force small firms to choose SBIR funding or VC funding, when in fact many growing small companies require both. Can you clarify how a change to the SBIR eligibility rules will help advance the objectives of the program?
As I mentioned in my testimony, what we see in the companies that we partner with for cystic fibrosis therapies is that they need a variety of resources to bring a therapy to market. Often our grants may be one of the larger ones they get or maybe one of the smaller ones. Our grants range from anywhere from around an average of about $1 million to, in some cases, $80 million for one promising therapy. So when you have that much money going into a company to bring something to patients, it requires a vast majority of resources, and SBIR can be a really valuable tool to bring into the mix for development. So we strongly support the idea that SBIR can be one of many resources for a company, not the only one.
So let me ask you, are you concerned that increasing also the average SBIR grant size will mean that fewer SBIR grants will be available to small businesses?
No, in fact, we applaud the increased grant size. The reality is, I think the current grant size is often inadequate to bring a therapy to the next stage. And it really is the larger grant size will enable the company to more accurately focus on the therapeutic development.
Okay, now you're to Mr. Graves.